everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with my good friends Jordan Kurtz and Tim Costello. Inner Game Group Live every Saturday, starting a little late today. Sorry about that. But we have a really good episode today. A guy I've known about for a long time. I've watched several of his shows. I know a lady who's used his stuff, and she thinks it's really great. And I've read his books. I haven't actually listened to his audio. So I told Tim and Jordan, I'm going to grab a couple later today. But I'm fairly familiar with what he does. Joe Dispenza, there's a lot of parallels with what he does to what we do. And it's going to be a very interesting discussion. He's a very interesting man because he used to be bound in a wheelchair. He had a back injury and wheelchair bound. Used his mind to heal his body. Now he walks around normally, normal guy. And very big on using your mind to heal your body, but not only your body, more importantly, what he focuses on even more, which is what we focus on, healing, getting over your subconscious trauma. And he does a lot more beyond that, and so do we. Healing trauma is step one. Step two is putting amazing beliefs down in your core that then propel your forward, beliefs tied to feelings. So we're going to dive into that. It's going to be a great show. He's going to give his own take. He does take it from a somewhat different angle than us, but there's a lot of parallels, so it'll be a good discussion. Before we dive into that, Jordan, welcome to the show. Tim, welcome to the show. Introduce yourselves.
Hello. I'm Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis, and today I chose this clip. I was listening to it, and because he talks a lot about, about trauma, about healing from your past. And like Ryan said, I think Joe has a very slightly different perspective than we do. And so I can sense a little more of the CBT in him. He's going to talk a little bit about, it's the story you have to replay in your head, and you just have to stop doing that. And so, I think it's a little more complicated than what he describes, but I think it's an excellent thing for us to comment on. And I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Good deal. My name is Tim with Tim Costello Hypnosis. I'm copying Jordan Kurtz, except I'm just not using his name. To add what Jordan said, I like Joe Dispenza for a number of reasons. One, he understands that there is trauma in some childhoods. He understands that trauma is emotional, and he understands that trauma is stored in the body. You're going to hear him mention a lot. And it's really cool that what we do goes right along with him. What makes ours different, we'll point out as we go, but we're more like a surgeon than a overseer, like he is doing. But anyway, we'll jump into it. Good stuff. I can't wait to go over this one.
All right. So, you guys have anything to say about the clip before we dive in? It's another Diary of a CEO clip with Steve Bartlett. Steve has a lot of good stuff, a lot of mindset stuff.
And we keep covering Diary of a CEO. He has a lot of good.
He's a good guy, and I wish he would call us up. He's going to mention a number of things that he's still got trauma. What I recommend in this video is we let it play a little bit longer than we normally do to sort of get his mindset.
I do. He does talk about processing early on, and I do need to comment on that.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I will shut up for a bit.
Me too. Not just you. Me too.
And by the way,
I gave you fine.
Duarte P-Dubs, welcome to the show. Zoromina, welcome to the show. And then Leopard Leatherworks, that's your wife, Carrie. Welcome to the show. And what was that, Jordan?
Is the timestamp I gave you fine? Is that you?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. Starting at 8:51.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yep. 9.
Is there a bug in our minds or in our society or within culture that stands in the way of our ability to change? And I think as I ask that question, what I'm really trying to get at is there's a culture that's emerged almost like a bit of a trauma culture where we kind of explain who we are based on what's happened to us. And it seems to be justified, i.e. this thing happened when I was a kid and that's why I am this way. Is that approach to viewing our trauma productive or unproductive? And is it a problem?
the stronger the emotion we feel from some event in our life, a trauma, a betrayal, a loss, a shock, a diagnosis, that the event produces an emotional response. And the high quotient of the emotional response changes our internal state. And the moment we feel altered inside of us, the brain takes a snapshot, freezes a frame or a series of frames and takes snapshots, and that's called the long-term memory. So then, from a biological perspective, every time the person remembers the problem, they're producing the exact same chemistry in their brain and body as if the event was happening.
Okay.
Cortisol, the adrenaline, whatever the emotion is. When they feel that emotion, we could say then that the body is reliving the event emotionally 50 to 100 times in a day. So the trauma is no longer in the brain at that point. Now the trauma is also in the body, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body. And it's that thought and that feeling, it's that image and that emotion, it's that stimulus and response that's conditioning the body subconsciously to become the mind of that emotion. And now that person emotionally is branded into the past. And you can say to them, why are you this way? Why are you so angry? Why are you so bitter? Why are you so mistrusting? Why are you so afraid? And they'll say to you, I am this way because of these events or that event that happened to me in my life 20 or 30 years ago. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing because, in a sense, their identity is completely connected to their past. And they, as long as they feel that emotion, they'll always remember the past. So now, the body is so objective. When it feels that emotion, it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating the emotion and the emotion that person is fabricating by thought alone. So now the body's believing it's living in the past event 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But what the person is really saying is, after that event, I haven't been able to change.
Mhm.
That's what they're saying. And so that becomes the person's identity, and there's nothing wrong with this. But you'll never hear me say in any of the work that we do, go back and process the past. We've discovered that when a person analyzes their problems within the emotions of the past, they make their brain worse. They actually drive it further out of balance. They're over-arousing it.
Okay, let's stop it right there.
Is it
like I said, the part on processing I have to comment on. So he is correct here, but I think it's really important to understand. There's some little things that I don't agree with, but I'll get to one or two of those. They in the long run, they don't matter. But this one here is absolutely right. You know, we looked at an interview with Joe Rogan, and was it Abigail Schreier, the journalist, about the you know, all the Gen Zers are like a therapy generation, and they just keep reliving their past traumas, and they're actually getting worse and more anxious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it Abigail Schreier? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's absolutely right. And how people here's the psychological model. Now, there's new theories and things coming out, tweaks, etc. But I had therapy for 15 years, on and off. It's like 100 sessions. So, you know, I had years where I had maybe a 3-year period I didn't do any, and then I would start up and do like 10 sessions in a year. And then, you know, early on, I probably did 20. I probably did more than 100 sessions, because my first couple years, I probably did like 20, 30 sessions each. So I had probably had like 50, 60 just my first 2 years. Anyways, the model that the therapists use for processing is that, and this ties into Carl Jung, who says, until we make our unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so he's a father of modern psychoanalysis, which was a predecessor of the current gold standard, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the gold standard the mainstream currently uses. And it's all about become aware of what is in your subconscious. And then the next step is to connect to it and experience it. And what they believe is that if you experience it enough, it loses its power. And I see that today. You know, they say, oh, you'll lose 50% of its power just by identifying what kind of emotion you have. Possibly in the short term. However, that doesn't do anything to change the trauma. And what we're about and what Joe is about is finding the emotional trauma. When we do sessions, people don't forget the memory, but the trauma tied to it is gone.
Yep.
And that's the painful emotions. That's the trauma. It's a painful belief, painful emotion. It's really two parts. This thing happened. What does it mean? And what's a feeling when you connect to it, or when something today happens that is a match for what happened? You know, so this is a very extremely common example here that many of my clients have. Terrified of a guy, terrified talking to a woman. We go back to their childhood, and at 12 years old, there was a girl he really liked, and his friend told the whole class, and the whole class laughed at him, and the girl's like, ooh, gross, or some variation of that. And so now when he sees an attractive woman now, his subconscious think about all the trauma that happened when he was 12, and now he has a lot of anxiety. And we go back and we rewrite that script and get rid of the emotion, and all of a sudden his anxiety is way lower, permanently less, and he's doing way better. So what we're doing and what Joe does is we actually rewire the brain. What conventional therapy does is they give you the awareness of what's wrong and what in your past has caused you to struggle now. And they have some techniques to manage your behaviors, but they don't fix the trauma, or they may fix it to a limited degree, but it takes forever. Their methods, are really inefficient. They really are. And so they kind of have like the first half, which is you actually do need to be aware of what is in you that's making you struggle. There's 5 steps of to rewire your brain. My 4-part series on superneuroplasticity goes over Dr. Andrew Huberman discussing Dr. Michael Merzenich and other neuroscientists that said the chemicals that must be released, the steps that literally cause your brain to change, like boom, one shot massively. It's neuroscience backed. It's true. It works. But modern therapy doesn't do that. They're like, let's just go there and relive it, and that'll get you better. And it doesn't. It actually does make things worse, like he says. So when they say process, normal therapy is like, oh, you're not even aware. It's in your subconscious. It's messing you up, and you don't even know what's going on. So let's get you connected to it and relive it or reconnect to it. He's right. It doesn't make things better. Oftentimes it can make things worse, just reliving it and just gaining the awareness of your trauma, but nothing else. It can do more harm than good, and oftentimes it does. Although sometimes it can actually help, somewhat. But you really need to move way beyond just that. You guys, what are your guys' comments?
Go ahead, Jordan, and I'll jump in.
Sure. Well, my initial thought was like, don't process the past, and I'm not exactly sure what he means by that. I think what he means is don't ruminate constantly.
Well, that's kind of what I just went over, and yeah, that's right. I would agree with
right. And so
you unearth it, and then you reconnect to it, and they say that's processing, but it doesn't fix your trauma. It just has you relive it.
Right. And I'll probably have more to say as we keep watching the interview, but
well, I'll say you don't even need to connect to a memory. You just need to connect to the traumatic emotion and belief. You can rewire that without even remembering the memory.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Let me
Okay, let me pick up the train down here.
Yeah.
So I like Stephen starts off the question with, and I'll summarize it into just a few words. I am this person because of this event. That becomes their cognitive identity. That's based upon, now Joe answers it, that we experience trauma pretty much 0 to 14 years old for 98% of the people out there. Your subconscious builds routines because of that trauma to protect yourself. So you are essentially correct, Stephen, that you are the identity of, to your core belief, that particular trauma set, because your subconscious is trying to work out the details to keep you safe. Now, Joe goes on to explain you need to identify these things and all that kind of stuff. What the cool thing is that through all what he does and what we do, ours is a little bit more surgical, is that we can now identify the trauma. We never, ever get rid of the memory, like Ryan just said, but we now strip the emotional construct to that memory. So now when your subconscious notices things in the outside world that would have matched that pattern before, it no longer matches because the trauma or the emotional trauma is gone from that memory or that pattern. So you are that identity of the culmination of all that trauma as you grow up, but that can be changed because now we're going to change the beliefs at your core. So that now you believe something different about yourself. And now you will be this new person that's not trapped by that. And as an example, I'll use Alcoholics Anonymous as a very common thing that people know about.
Okay.
One of the very first steps of the 12 steps is I am an alcoholic, right? In the back of the mind of that person saying that, they're truly believing that they are an alcoholic, and that defines them, and that they will always be an alcoholic. When in essence, all they are is addicted to alcohol because their subconscious has found a substance that makes them feel better about the subconscious trauma they experience, and it numbs it. So it continues to reach out for that addictive substance. It could be narcotics. It could be video games, porn. It doesn't matter what the element is. You are that because your subconscious wants to make you feel better. That's what I got to say on that first little bit of what Stephen and Joe are talking about.
Yeah. One other thing I'll point out that, again, it doesn't matter in the long run practically, but Joe gets wrong. He talks about how our the interface with the emotions in our body will then interact with what's in our mind, the belief systems, and wire our subconscious that way. Our emotions come from our subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling something, that program's already there. Your emotions don't wire your subconscious. Your emotions come from your subconscious based on what is already there, just so you know. And our subconscious influences us through emotion, intuition, instinct. The instinct part is hardwired. It's like genetic, physiological. It's based on your genetic makeup and your biology. But then the subconscious belief systems are pretty much everything else. As far and then there's a tiny percent, like 10% of our behavior is conscious mind. But when you feel an emotion, that is your subconscious programs doing some processing and giving you that emotion that comes from your subconscious. So we go when we rewire people's trauma or just subconscious programs that don't serve them, we are getting rid of the negative emotion that's causing to have all these coping mechanisms to deal with that painful negative emotion. But we are also putting in a new narrative. And Joe's what I mean by that is, let's say you were a kid and you're in school and you embarrassed yourself, and then maybe you got bullied, or maybe everyone laughed at you. And if you got bullied, when I'm in a session, someone goes back to getting bullied and it's affecting them now. Now they're afraid people are going to hurt them or whatever, and they have a lot of social anxiety. The new narrative is, I'm not this child anymore. I'm now big and strong, and I can protect myself. Whereas back then you were a small, helpless child. So when you got bullied as a child, the belief you formed when you got bullied is, I'm small and helpless and the world's unsafe. And this guy beat me up. And that's the belief. I'm powerless. I'm helpless. I'm unsafe. Put in a new narrative. I can trust my gut, my intuition to keep me safe. And I'm not this small, helpless child. Like, a lot of people are afraid now because their brain still believes they're that small, helpless child, which is when the subconscious program first formed. So it is a new narrative. The memory is still there. And but the negative emotion is gone because we work on the emotion and put in a new narrative as well. So moving on, but just wanted to clarify that point too. It's not just the emotion, it's also the stories we have in our head about what everything means.
All right. Keep going here then.
Is that if the person can get beyond the emotion, truly get beyond the emotion, they'll free themselves from the past. And what we discovered is that if you teach a person to give up the fear, the bitterness, the resentment, the frustration, the impatience, the judgment, you said, stop feeling that emotion. I know there's a reason why. I'm sure everybody's got a story, right? So, but there's nothing that's going to change that story until you change, right? And so we discovered that if you trade those emotions for an elevated emotion, if you start feeling gratitude and appreciation and love and kindness and care, and you practice feeling that emotion, we give you some tools to use, to change your breathing, to put your attention in a different place, and to work with your body. What we discovered is when the person can truly begin to open their heart, and we have brain scans on this, when the heart begins to open and it begins to become coherent. In other words, when you're feeling frustration or impatience or judgment, your heart is beating very incoherently. When you're feeling love and gratitude, kindness and care, there's a rhythm, there's a cadence that the heart has that's very coherent. When the heart gets coherent, we measure this, it immediately informs the brain that the trauma is over. The heart tells the brain the past is over, the event is over, and it resets the baseline in the brain. And so now the person, when they look back at their past, they're no longer looking at it from the same level of consciousness. In fact, many of them will say, oh my God, I needed to go through all of that to get to this point right here. They'll tell you, they'll say, I wouldn't want to change one thing in my past because it got me to the present moment. Okay, so we work with Navy SEALs, special ops, prisoners. We work with people that have had some very serious traumas, really serious abuses, just difficult childhoods. These people are, night terrors, suicidal, can't, leave their homes, socially having trouble, panic attacks. It's kind of funny because the moment that person actually breaks through from the emotion, and the words they typically describe, they say, was like, my heart exploded. It's like my heart blew wide open. The moment that happens, they're bringing their body right out of the past, right into the present moment. And lo and behold, many times there goes the anxiety, there goes the depression, there goes the cyclic mood patterns. Somehow the body gets recalibrated back into order, back into homeostasis. So the point I'm making is that the memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. And now you're ready for the next adventure in your life. The soul can't go to the next adventure if it's holding on to the past. So we don't really ever address the story, because the story is only firing and wiring the same circuits in the brain, reaffirming the identity to the past just to feel the same emotion. And the research shows that 50% of the story we tell in our past isn't even the truth. That means that people are reliving a miserable life they never even had, just to excuse themselves from changing, right? And I'm not taking shots at anybody. But what I am saying is you can't tell me that your past was so brutal that you can't change. Because we have seen people with some really, really horrible pasts that literally are completely different people that have completely different lives.
And go ahead,
I really want
stop
to
right
focus in
there.
on what
Yep,
it is we're
yep,
doing
good
wrong.
point.
I don't know if we can play it, Jordan. You know, I put the file on our Telegram. Everything he says I agree with, by the way. And you know, it's what we do all day, every day, right? Although we're not medical practitioners, so if you come to us with, you know, we're not going to diagnose you as borderline personality disorder and then cure or treat it. We just have people who want to feel better and do better, but we're not medical practitioners. We disclaim that. We're not psychologists licensed. We disclaim that. I'm not sure if we're able to bring it up, Jordan, but you know,
Which one?
Diego, he gave us permission to put it on YouTube. So there was a guy yesterday. A lot of our clients will come back like we don't even know a fraction of the good that we do, but when people come back, they're always like, "Oh yeah, you changed my life. This is so great." And so there's a guy came back for a little extra advice, a young man named Diego. I did one session for him. Jordan did one session for him. And I didn't realize this. He had moderately severe stuttering. It wasn't super bad, but it was definitely very noticeable. And after 2 sessions with us, his stuttering is almost completely gone. It's about 85% gone permanently. And so that's what we see all day, every day, is we see stuff like that fixed. Now, we are not making, if you have a stuttering problem, we are not making the claim we will fix you. We're just making an observation that this guy got fixed because it's true. I'm not sure if you're able to load up or cue that video.
I am. I'm bringing it up.
But it's about 8 minutes. And again, I did a session and then Jordan later did a session and he said about 60% of what he cleared was cleared through me. And then Jordan kind of pinpointed some stuff, cleared the rest. And now only if he's trying to communicate very complicated topics, he's an engineering student. That's the only time he gets tripped up. The rest of the time, he doesn't even stutter at all. So if you're able to cue that up, let's actually show what happens. There you go. When you go back and he's going to talk about the emotions and the trauma that caused him to stutter and how he feels now. And what I love, what I tell people on the other side of suffering is wisdom. And Joe said it in a very similar way. When you get over the negative narrative and the painful emotions from your past, on the other side of that trauma and suffering is wisdom, because you keep what you learned from that. That stuff is very useful. If your interpretation is optimal, and if it's not, we make it optimal, you know, the narrative, and then you clear it out, then you are a wiser, stronger person. I cannot help people. I could not help people if I didn't have an upbringing with a narcissistic parent. And I mean full-blown NPD. I don't mean narcissistic traits. I mean full-blown cluster B, antisocial personality group disorder, DSM-5 diagnosis, etc. So I used to have manic depression. I used to have complex PTSD, general anxiety, all that stuff. Fixed it when I found these techniques, and it's put me in a position where I can massively help people. And it's if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't have found this, and I wouldn't be helping others. So it's given me the wisdom. It drove me to find it, and I healed it. And then I have this wisdom and this ability to help others because of what I've been through. Same thing with Tim and Jordan. Our life experience, good and bad, but especially the bad, has made us healing from the trauma as well, wiser, stronger. And go ahead. Yeah.
I'll play the video in a second.
Play the video after.
Yeah, I know. I got it queued up. So I was taking notes as he was talking because there's a couple important things. So I don't know how I feel about this. Just practice feeling a different emotion. So instead of fear, you feel gratitude. And so that to me sounds I don't know if that's gonna work. Like, how do you, if you don't, what if you don't feel like it's safe enough to feel gratitude? I mean, fear is a very strong
Well,
emotion. So, like,
I know what he's doing. I actually know, like, I haven't used Joe's methods, but I'm very good friends with the lady who's used them a ton. And they work similar to what we do. It's just he kind of does things in a roundabout way, so it's not quite as concentrated as what we do. But people are connecting to their emotion, and then he's replacing it with a new one. And the steps of superneuroplasticity is you're aware of what needs to change. Epinephrine release through just being awake and alert. You have some epinephrine in your brain, but feeling intense emotion will make that stronger. And then you focus on what you want to change, that negative emotion, and then you change it. So if you trigger yourself, trigger your trauma, you're feeling like crap, you are focusing on that, and you are aware of it. And then when you feel a new emotion, I don't think it's as direct and concentrated and effective as it could be, but you are essentially telling your brain that old emotion, replace it with this, make the change. That's step number 4. And then non-sleep deep rest. And he does these guided meditations, which, like hypnosis, a guided meditation is like self-hypnosis. They're very similar. Those are all the 5 steps: awareness, alertness, being awake, and intense emotionality releases more epinephrine in your brain for the alertness, focusing on it, and then putting in a new emotion. Now, this lady I know says, his meditation is like 2 hours, and you got to do them a lot, and it takes forever. But she's cleared a lot of her trauma through his stuff. It takes longer because I don't think it's quite as direct as what we do.
And I wanted to point out that it's not just as simple as just force yourself to feel better. Like, that's like the language he used sort of might point you in that direction. It's like, well, right, just don't feel fear, feel gratitude instead. It's like, it's a little more complicated than just that.
But he does have people connect to the fear and then shift it. Connecting with that negative emotion is part of what he does, but then he shifts it into gratitude or these other things.
Yeah, I'm looking over my notes here. So he says also 50% of the story we tell in the past isn't even the truth. And that's technically that can be true, but
like right, but not right how he says it.
Well, it's not really relevant to us. What does matter is the interpretations of those events, which creates that trauma. And so even if you like my brother and I, for example, we both argue over the fact that something that happened in our childhood, I am absolutely sure it was me, and he incorrectly thinks it was him with the same amount of like desire. So was it him that actually these events happened to? Was it me? It doesn't necessarily matter, but if it was, but this event wasn't necessarily traumatic. But the point is, does it matter if you can't remember the source of the trauma or how good your memory is? It doesn't really. It's not relevant for what we're doing. What's relevant is that you use the memory to connect to the feeling you're trying to let go of. And so whether or not it's perfectly accurate or not is sort of, we're not using hypnosis to like create court testimony or things like that. We're not,
Yeah, and I can say not the memory, but the interpretation of what the memory means. That's the feeling tied to it, the emotion tied. It's 2 parts. Something happens as a child, adolescent, I mean, as an adult too, but our subconscious belief systems are forming as a child and adolescent. These things happen, and we have an interpretation as to what it means and a feeling tied to it, the emotionality and the narrative. The narrative, if it's not serving you, is wrong 100% of the time. But it's only wrong in the sense that it's a narrative that doesn't serve you and causes you problems. And the truth is, there is a very broad spectrum of what beliefs can be attached to different things. Like, you could have someone die, and the narrative one person has is he's gone forever. And the narrative another person has is his soul lives on, he's in a better place. Well, we don't know 100%. I believe the soul lives on, but we don't have 100% definitive truth one way or the other. But one narrative will serve us and help us more than another narrative. So we just choose the one that serves us the most, that makes us the happiest, the most resilient, the toughest, the most optimistic, that helps us have the most happiness, joy, productivity, whatever. Just choose that one. Why not? You know, who's to say which one is right or wrong? But the one that helps us the most is the most right in the sense that it helps us the most. That we can determine. So a lot of us have these narratives that don't serve us. When I fail, it means I'm a failure, because when I was a kid, I did something, I was trying to do something right, and I made a mistake and messed it up, and my dad yelled at me. And so the narrative from that memory and the many other times he did it is, when I fail, it means I'm a failure. That does not serve you. Now you're procrastinating anything you could fail at, because your brain wants to avoid the pain of trying it, failing, and feeling like a failure. And we put in a new narrative. Those who succeed the most first fail the most, because they're trying the most and they're trying the hard things. But the more I do anything, the better I get, until I get enough skill to get what I want. And that is true. We practice stuff, we get better. And if you keep going, you'll get enough skill to get what you want. That's how it works. You see millions of examples of that through life. Well, you now have a new narrative that serve you, because now you're kicking more ass and getting what you want, and you don't feel as bad as when you fail. And so who's that? You can argue over which one's right or wrong, but we know that one serves us the best, and that one also transforms the emotion. Now, instead of feeling bad, you're like, I'm just learning and growing. This interview with Diego, who, again, we 85% cured his stuttering. Two sessions, lifelong stuttering fixed. We're going to play it. He's going to talk about some of these narratives we put in him. But you guys have any comments before we go to that?
So I do, about the thing that we just watched with Joe.
Yeah.
First of all, today is Joe's birthday, so that's pretty
Happy
coincidental.
birthday,
He's 63 years old now. He's about a year younger than me. And Joe is a doctor and all that good stuff, researcher, etc. And although Ryan and Jordan and I are tremendously trained and do it a lot and are aware of the elements of what Joe is talking about, to the regular person, you hear lots of the psychobabble that you hear from a lot of people, such as open up your heart. How do you open up your heart?
Less of that. I do.
What's that?
I wish he'd do a little less of the touchy-feely. And
I don't think he can help himself. I think that's just the way they talk, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not doing the surgical approach like we're doing. He's, like you said, he's going about that roundabout way. Nothing he said was incorrect.
I agree.
But if you strip the psychobabble off, you get the elements that we recognize, such as Jordan said, connecting to the emotion. We don't care about the memory. The memory's not going to go away. We can't fix it, can't do anything about it. But we will strip that traumatic emotion or that negative emotion or the emotion that doesn't serve you from that memory. And then rewire the narration about that memory so that now that it serves you.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's what we're doing. So anyway, let's go on to the clip, because I love this clip that we're going to see right now.
All right.
And by the way, this is very impromptu. He scheduled a 30-minute consult with me, and when he told him his stuttering was almost completely cured, I'm like, oh, man, can you talk about this? And we put it on YouTube, and he said yes. So the camera angles are shit for me, but it's still a solid gold. So, yeah, go ahead.
No audio.
Uh-oh.
Got it muted. Lower right-hand corner. Lower right-hand corner, I think.
I hear it in my headphones. So
We don't hear it at all.
let me see.
When you present it, you may have to share the audio. I don't know if it does that automatically.
Yeah, let's see if, yeah.
And we are live, folks.
Yeah. That's what you call what you don't want in radio. Blank air.
Uh-oh.
All right. I guess you can see on.
Here we go.
Peterson Kurtz.
I can
Jordan
hear it.
Kurtz, who I
Working.
Yep.
All right. Should I turn it up a tad?
There's the top of my head.
Great guy, and much appreciated. So I'm here with Diego. Diego, you did a session with me. Also, you did another one with my good friend Jordan Peterson Kurtz. Jordan Kurtz, who I have my Saturday show with. Great guy. And we were just talking, and you mentioned that you used to stutter, but our sessions, what would you say, 90%, 80% fix your stuttering, 95?
I mean, yeah, your sessions combined 85% of my stuttering for sure.
Okay.
Gone.
And I
Like
remember
when I came out of it.
the stutter, and I didn't even realize that you're talking to me now, and you're just talking like a normal dude. So how many sessions was that? There was one with me, one with Jordan.
Two.
Is that it? 2 sessions.
Just 2 sessions, fixed it all.
So,
And it was something that would bring me so much embarrassment because people would point it out, and then it just made me feel like shit. But now I just it feels so good to finally be able to express my ideas clearly and confidently without stuttering and even articulating better my thoughts and ideas.
yeah, that just
Feels really wonderful.
holy cow. What was it, you were mentioning a little bit before, but what was it internally in you that you think causes stuttering that was addressed?
Well, what Jordan Kurtz pointed out to me, and I think that's what helped me get rid of all of it, was the reason I stuttered is because I cared about other people's opinions about me.
Mhm.
And because of that, subconsciously, when I would talk to them, I would try to say things perfectly. And that would cause me to stutter because it was a way to prevent me from saying something that was not perfect in order to, not be judged. But ever since I've let go and I just don't care what other people think about me now, I just been seeing myself speaking a lot more confidently and a lot more clearly with no stuttering, which feels wonderful.
And so my session, I did a session in Jordan. So did my session get the ball rolling, fix half of it, or what happened with that?
Your session definitely did both, but it definitely helped me a lot. After a session, I definitely felt that I could speak in a more confident way and my stuttering had reduced a lot more. But with Jordan, he really pinpointed the issue, and then
Or finish it
we
off?
realized that was the issue, and then he finished it off.
Cool.
So it was a combined effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
So,
nice.
and I did a session with you, and I didn't even realize Jordan did one for you too, and that was very nice of him. So, you were just mentioning about some sort of social anxiety, caring what other people thought about. What was that like before you did the session? Tell us more about that.
Well, it was even with my own friends, or just at parties or what. I would always be scared about what people would thought of me about, just from the way I looked, dressed, but more about what I was saying. I was trying to fit in, be cool,
Mm-hmm.
but I was never being myself, my authentic self. And I knew deep down that was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew how to bring that out of me. And ever since I found your work, I mean, it's been a lot better.
2 sessions.
I'm
man.
feeling a lot more
How
confident
else-
and authentic.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. That was my thought.
Okay. And how else did these sessions help you?
That was probably the biggest notice, or the one I'm probably the most grateful for. But also my procrastination.
Mhm.
That's definitely something that has reduced a lot. What I realized is the
How
reason I
bad was
wasn't
it
getting
before, and what's it at now?
it depended on the work I was doing,
Mhm.
but before it ranged between 6 and 9, depending on the work I was doing.
0
example,
to 10,
if
on
I
a
was working
scale
on-
of 0 to 10, 6 to 9 procrastination.
6 to 9. Like, for example, when I was working on my English project, it'd be a 9, but when I was working on more engineering related problems, it'd be more of a 6. And what I realized from you guys, it was because it's all subconscious. Because my body, because when I do English, I feel stupid. My body wants to avoid me feeling that sort of shame of feeling stupid, and so it would make me work on something, like distract myself, do something else, even though, you know, that procrastination would lead me to get a bad grade and hurt myself more. And with you guys cleared that out. You guys made me realize that, you know, I'm part of this like human race. I'm still here to learn and grow, and there's no such thing as failure, only like learning opportunities and growing opportunities. And I think that just clicked into my subconscious, and now my procrastination has reduced from a 2 to a 4 for sure.
From 6 to
And
9
that's
down to maybe 2 to 4 out of 10.
2 to 4.
2
Still
sessions.
depending on what I do.
Is that a temporary
it's-
effect or permanent? Like everything we've done, is it just we did a session a week ago, or how long ago were these sessions, and are you still feeling the benefits?
Well, last time we did a session was a few months ago, and I'm still feeling the effects now. So I'm positive it's permanent.
Brain rewiring.
Yes.
Awesome, bro. One thing I want to point out to our audience is, and feel free to disagree or agree, but what causes procrastination and also his stuttering is he has an internal belief system linked to pain. If this goes wrong, that means I'm dumb, I'm awkward, people don't like me, therefore I'm not good enough. But then we rewire that belief system to, I'm good enough just as I am. If people can't see my massive value, it means they can't see it. That's their blindness. That's their problem. I think that's one of the things I put in you. Does this resonate? So a lot of this maladaptive behavior people have is their brain trying to protect us from triggering painful feelings that suck. We don't want to feel it. And ironically, what happened with your procrastination is because of this internal pain, hey, if I screw this up, I'm going to feel bad. That made you procrastinate. And then you end up getting a bad grade and then feel bad anyways. But do you think there's truth to what I'm saying, that your brain, there is pain in you and we just got rid of it, so it's not there, or it's there to a much lower degree? And so now you...
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
That resonate?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely does resonate.
Now,
100%.
before, if you would stutter or say something off or wrong that maybe someone would judge you for, or you're afraid they would judge you for, how would you feel after that happened?
Feel like shit. I mean,
Feel like crap. How do you feel now? You say something, maybe you do still stutter a little. Is the feeling different or the same?
yeah, now I just don't give a fuck. If I stutter, I really do not care. But my stuttering is gone, so that's not even an issue. I mean, I still stutter 5% of the time. That's when I'm thinking about something complex. And when I do, I really do not care. Like, yeah, I just do not care.
I do.
It's just a beautiful feeling.
All right, cool. And there is a little bit more work to do, but 2 sessions, big shift. And thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience or anyone considering about doing this? What would you tell them? Anyone who's struggling?
Yeah, if you haven't worked with Ryan or Jordan Kurtz, you guys should 100% work with them. This is truly life-changing, and it's crazy how it's not out there. Like, people should know about this a lot more. And what they're doing are truly changing lives. It's changing mine in great ways. So I'm really grateful for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, it's not months or years of therapy. 2 sessions did that.
2 sessions. Yeah.
2 hours.
It's wonderful.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your story, Diego. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Tag team. Me and Jordan. Tag team effort, baby.
So I'd like to throw something down with that. All of us experience that post the hypnosis session that we give. And we see brightness and joy appear in people's lives. And although he said, Diego says, I don't give an F. In reality, that's the response because of the pain before where he did give an F.
Yeah.
But in reality, there is no connection to anything that anybody could say to him because he knows at his core, he is worth infinite value and worth. So it's not that he doesn't GNF, it just doesn't dawn on him to even be affected by what people think anymore. It's a little bit different perspective, but we often get, I don't give an F because there was such an emotional, I do give an F before. So I appreciate that comment, but in reality, there's literal consideration or thought about what other people think because you're so self-validated from your core.
Yeah, so what we're doing is somewhat different methods, but there's bound to be a lot of overlap because you have to meet the same 5 requirements to rewire your brain. We're running parallel with somewhat different methods to what Joe is doing. But from what I've heard from people who've used his methods, we're quicker. It's more concentrated, more powerful. And yeah, what we just showed you, again, people come to us and we're not like, okay, I'm going to do hypnosis to fix your stuttering, because I wasn't focused on that at all in this session. We are focused on, okay, what is going on in your subconscious? What are, like Joe says, what are these painful emotions? And can we shift it to, instead of pain, instead of you are enough as you are, you have massive value for who you are. If others don't see it, they're blind and can't see it. Doesn't affect your value. You have value just for who you are. So we, shift to unconditional self-love from the trauma, for example. And so I started the process. Jordan finished it. Great job, Jordan. We're working on the same stuff Joe does, just somewhat different methods, but a lot of overlap.
Now let's be clear about who Joe
like that all the time, though.
Right, all the time.
We've had stuff. I've had people with borderline personality disorder. I probably fixed like 3/4 of their BPD. I've had people multiple. I've had narcissists. I don't think we can completely fix, but I kind of halfway fixed 2 or 3. We've had people just like huge depression. And again, if someone comes to us, we're not going to diagnose that and treat that. We're just treating beliefs and feelings, Right. But incidentally, we just have story after story after story. And there's like over 30 on my website right now of people just massively upgrading. We've had people, you had a salesperson, 10x his income. I had a guy on a sales team of 200 call center, second from the bottom, 1 session. A few months later, number 7 out of 200. Like just crazy results all the time. Just go to the video section. There's like 25 just in the video section that are clearly marked as testimonial. And then there's some that are hidden too. Like this one will be hidden, but I gotta put this one as a standalone on my YouTube channel. So you had something, Jordan?
I remember the conversation I had with Diego. And so I think what I told him was that stuttering comes from the fear of criticism. He kind of alluded to that, but it's that fear of other people are going to judge me. They're going to criticize me based on what I say. And so he did come to me. I think we worked, again, it's not specifically on the stutter, but he was like, well, I feel like I'm still stuttering a little bit. And I said, well, let's get to the root cause of the stuttering, which is the fear of criticism, the fear of being judged by others. So I think Ryan's correct that people necessarily, they might come to us because they're noticing a specific symptom, but we're not there to address the symptom. We're there to address the root cause of the symptom.
Yeah.
And so there's one more thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a there's this guy, great friend of mine. I did 3 sessions. Some of the people I do sessions for, I become really great friends with. I have several like that. Jordan, I did a session for you. We're friends. Hey. But so this guy I did sessions for, he went from couldn't hold down a job to now earning 6 figures within 3 years. He had a girlfriend. And I have a self-hypnosis course. And she had anorexia, and he used a self-hypnosis, fixed her anorexia. And then like the next week, I'm eating steak lunch with them. And she's wolfing down this steak, and she's this cute little, early 20s, whatever. He's pretty young too. He's in his 20s, or he just turned 30. This is a couple of years ago. And she's eating this steak, and she's like, oh my God, my tummy doesn't hurt anymore. And I just like almost broke down crying, man. But Joe Dispenza has a lot of miraculous stories, and it happens with us too, because this stuff is very powerful. Get rid of that negative emotional trauma and the painful beliefs that are tied to it, and it is massive.
So to let you know a little bit about Joe, Joe is a doctor of chiropractic. He's got some other work where he's taken neuroscience courses and stuff like that, which sort of gives him a little bit of background into neuroscience. He's from Washington State, super great guy. And again, both of us are running parallel lines to achieve the same goal. As you heard these two gents say,
techniques, yeah,
the techniques are a little different.
A lot of
ours are more surgical, and his are more roundabout, repetitive. Not bad at all. Just repetitive is really the name of the game with his stuff. Listening and listening and listening. And again, that helps with anything. There's a lot of cognitive efforts that are repetitive that you can do to help yourself out. But if you want to get to the root cause, like Jordan's talking about, then we get in there with the knife like a surgeon, and we remove that traumatic emotional connection to the event or memory. You still have the memory, the event still happened, but now you feel different about it. And that's what's key and different about what we're doing. But we don't have to repeat it 1,000 times. We do it once, and that particular trauma is gone. And then we may come back and do other traumas, because the brain is like peeling an onion of trauma, and you have to get rid of the big ones and the smaller ones and the smaller ones and the smaller ones till none of them are bothering you anymore.
And a lot of people can do it on their own.
Absolutely.
I fixed a lot of my trauma with self-hypnosis, more 90%. I did need a few sessions for a few things I couldn't fix, but if you want to try it for yourself, right there, school.com/RyanFowlerSOS -7231. There is a free self-hypnosis course. It's a basic course, but it's not just information. It is an actual method you can use to fix yourself. And we've had people fix their procrastination, fix all sorts of stuff with the free basic self-hypnosis course. Go there, join the community, give it a shot. It'll change your life. I tell people that 80% of people can fix about 80% of their trauma with self-hypnosis. Absolutely true. Been my experience. However, the 80% it works for, there's usually at some point something they can't get on their own. Come to us. Some people don't want to take the time to learn and develop that skill, so they just come to us and just boom, right away we fix it like that. That's what we do as well. Some people, maybe 20%, they're just not used to connecting to their emotions, or they don't have the self-awareness, or their internal situation very complicated and the free program doesn't work. And so come to us and we sort you out. Yep. So, but with that said, if you want the fastest results, book a session with us, because go in the description of this video and you can book a session with any of us. The links are there. And if you want that big, deep, fast result, more than 90% of the time, like I'd say 92, 95% of the time, we succeed. One session. Doesn't mean we fix everything. I fix 3 to 4 issues, 60 to 100% for about more than 90% of the people that come my way in one session. So I'm not just fixing one, I fix multiple. I would say pretty typical is something's 90 to 100% gone, 3 to 4. But then there's some people that maybe they need a follow-up session or self-hypnosis to get the rest out. It just depends. That's what we do.
Absolutely.
All day, every day. We've been doing it for years. Stuff like that. And Joe does it too. And, he's a good man.
It's a good video.
Yeah.
Well, we could cover the rest next week if you want.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
Lots more to go.
Week he goes through a lot of other good stuff. You guys have any final thoughts?
No, sir. We love it.
Okay. Zoramania and
good.
the new next. Thank you for your comments. Everyone else, thanks for saying hi, dropping in. What's up, new next? And so good to go?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right. So look into this, guys. it changes everything. It changed my life massively, changed Jordan's life massively. Tim's always been pretty awesome, but his wife had some issues. Carrie, great lady, changed her life massively. Now she has a business that keeps, she tried 20, 30 times to start a business, couldn't go through with it. We do one session, fixed it. And now she just keeps you working around the clock to meet the demand with her business that she's now succeeding wildly at.
Pretty much.
So, fixes that you guys have painful stuff in you, it's optional. If you are suffering right now, understand that there's a few types of suffering we can't fix. Like if you have, a physical ailment or you lost a loved one. Yeah, there's some things you'll just have to, and again, fix that physical ailment to the extent you can. It's tough losing a loved one. And there's other things that can happen, but a lot of this chronic suffering, chronic depression, anxiety, sadness, all of that can be fixed. That suffering is optional, but we don't just fix it. We replace it with some of the things Joe's been talking about. Gratitude, joy, unconditional self-love, belief in your ability and value, a determination to go out and kick ass, and then you do it until you succeed because you have these good core energies, emotions, beliefs in you. You can shift to that. And then when you make that shift, everything changes for the better. There's still tough times, but you're now so much stronger and you handle it so much better. And when you get to that point, you will discover what Tim and Jordan and I have discovered, which is you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Thank you.